Infinity Comics Auctions has quickly become one of my favorite places to go find high-grade comics with pressable defects. Stay tuned to see what I've picked up next. Welcome back, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and in today's episode, I went back to Infinity Comics Auctions on Hipcomics.com to pick up some high-grade keys that have definite pressable defects. And we'll get into that comic book haul today because I picked up some really top-notch keys as well as some lesser books that are just fun books to have in the PC. So sit back in a second and we'll go through the books. But before we do that, definitely hit that like, slap the subscribe, and click on the notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any of my episodes I put out each and every week, Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. All right, guys, here we go. Let's get into the books.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
All right, so what I look for when I go to Infinity Comics Auctions on hipcomics.com are top-notch keys and maybe things that I just want to put in my collection, but I am always looking for the best condition I can find. We all are when we go out there. And when I'm on there, I'm finding that they've got some really great books that look like they have pressable defects. And in most cases, I'm staying away if they're, depending on the book, I'm staying away if I see spine ticks, corner creases, tears, or anything like that. And again, if you watched my last video, I talked about the photos are not as high quality as you'll find on heritage auctions, but they're not bad. And again, from that last video, I did a visual inspection. I showed you guys the books, and then I went into the shop and I did a close-up overhead view of the books to see if what I was seeing on the website was what I was getting. And I will say, overall, I was really happy with all the books that I got in my last auction. So I decided to dip my toe back into an Infinity Comics auction on Hipcomics. And I want to also reach out to one of my viewers who reached out to me from that video and informed me that I didn't have to pay for each item each day during the week that I win. If I won multiple things over multiple days, I can literally wait for that to add up at the end of the week. I didn't realize that that's the way it was. And so that's what I did with this. These books I've got here today are all over the course of 3 to 4 days. And I ended up making one payment at one time, so they all came together. And I couldn't be happier with the books I've got. I've pulled them out, I've taken a look at them. We are not going to do an overhead view today. I'm not going to sit down and review those books like I did the last time, because last time I did that so I could show you guys that the quality was exactly what I was kind of seeing on the photos. Even though those photos aren't as high quality, I definitely felt like you're seeing just enough. Now, sometimes you're taking a little bit of a chance and everything, but I felt like it was just good enough to kind of take chances on maybe some bigger books. And that's what I did this time. I went for a big key, and we'll show that one at the end. But let's just start with the books that I picked up this time. And this right here is a goal book for 2024. I'm looking to get a 9.8 candidate, and it's a mini-series book. Let me just show it to you guys. It is Wolverine #2 from the limited series from Claremont and Miller. This is one of the all-time great covers right there. One of the best Wolverine covers you ever get. In fact, CGC for a time used this image as the label art that they would put on for people when they wanted a Wolverine label. And love this label. It's actually very awesome. I'm trying to get a 9.8 run of the Wolverine limited series. Now I'm halfway there. I've got issue 4 and issue 1, all 9.8s. What I don't have is a 9.8 is issues 2 and 3. And I'm close. I've got 9.6s on those, but I don't have a 9.8. And the prices have kind of shot up on 9.8s. And let me go over that real quick with you. 9.8s, I mean, most recent sales, literally days ago, best offer was taken on, it was $550, but it was a best offer, so you know it wasn't quite that. Right before that, it was $524. That was a best offer on that. But then there was a solid sale of $350, all within the last week or two. And I'm going, I don't want to pay. This is issue number 2. I don't want to pay that kind of money for that. But I don't mind going out there and trying to find a super nice raw comic that I can clean and press. Well, I took a look at the 2 images, the front and the back, on the site, and the first thing that I noticed on this book right here, this particular copy, and let me put it forward just a little bit. If you guys can see it at all there, the cover wrap, I mean, it's not a spine roll, but the cover wrap is actually coming around on the front there an awful lot. I mean, it's one of the biggest back covers coming to the front I've seen, to be honest with you, but it's even. It's even down the edge right there. So you can tell that by the top. The top is nice and even too. But you can tell that barely, you can tell right there. You can see where the art is starting to get cut off. The Comics Code Authority is getting cut off a little bit. The rest of their cover is okay, but it's very close right here. Well, I'm actually finding a lot of comics from Infinity Comics are like this. And I don't have a problem with it. Now, this one's actually pretty severe. But what I tried to do was really look at that photo and see if there were any spine ticks over in this white area. Of course, it's not going to be color breaking, but there could be paper breaking spine ticks. And I couldn't really see anything. Now, I haven't taken this out to take a look on the back exactly, but the front here so far has looked fantastic. And they had this listed as a VF plus, so that was really in the neighborhood. The corners are nice and sharp up here. There's no dog ears. This is a little bit far over. As I said, the cover wrap's coming around a little bit, but in this case, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to take this to my advantage, and I really am going to push this book. Hopefully we'll get that 9.8. We'll get it into the shop. We'll do a clean and press, and we'll make this part of a submission at some point soon. But for those kind of prices, though, I mean, problem is, you know me, I want to keep it in my collection. But 9.6s have really, guys, if you want this as a high grade 9.6, if you're happy with that, they're only going for $120, $110, $130 over the course of the last few weeks. I mean, it's crazy how much these have dropped down. If you wanted to make a 9.6 run on some of these, that's a really affordable price. But I don't want to be paying $350 for a 9.8 on this. I'm very satisfied to try to find high-grade copies of this to try to get into CGC. And this right here, I think, is a really good candidate for a 9.8 at this point. All right, second thing up was going to be the Shadow #1, and I'll put a picture of it right up here. From 1973, it's from Mike Kaluta, and it was a VF minus copy, and I think I had a winning bid of around $20, $22, something like that. Well, it didn't matter because it got canceled. Apparently, it got pulled. I don't know the reason why, but I didn't get charged for it, of course. But when I opened up the order in the bag, because they bag these in different days, they gave me a free copy or an extra copy to make up for not getting the other book. Now, again, I didn't pay for the other book, but they did give me a copy of Marvel Secret Wars #5. Got this Bob Layton cover. It's probably, actually, I was going to say this is one of my least favorite covers from the series. Although I think the Hulk holding the mountain up is probably my least favorite of all of those. But it is part of that Secret Wars storyline, so I can't go wrong too bad with that. This is probably a fine VF minus copy. It's got too many spine ticks for anything. But I do appreciate the free book they threw in, not getting the Shadow #1 book. So there's that. So that was one day on the auction. The next day they had some other things. And there wasn't a lot that I saw that was popping out, but they had two things on there that really, well, they had this one book, and then they had a run of another item. I'm not going to say book exactly, but we'll get to that. But this is a book I've always wanted ever since I was a kid, when I was visiting at my grandparents' house, and I'd go through the attic, and I found all these, I wouldn't say a ton, but I found a handful of old comics, mostly Marvel, maybe a little DC, but mostly Marvel books and Silver Age books, right? And I'm looking at them, and one of the favorite things about Marvel comics back in the Silver Age is that they would have house ads for some of the other comics that were coming out that month. So you got to see some of these other great Silver Age books that they were putting out. And I always wanted to get copies of some of these. Well, this is one of those, and I don't know if I've ever read this as a reprint anywhere, but I've never had this. And this was in a really nice condition. It's a fine VF copy. We'll go over if I'm going to get it graded or not, but let me show it to you guys. It is the first issue of Not Brandish. How do you say that? I've never known how to actually, Not Brandish. Guys, you'll have to let me know. But this is, like I said, a really nice copy. It is the parody version of Marvel. Just something fun. I've always wanted to have a copy of this. In fact, the whole run of this is actually really fun. I know I've read certain stories over the years. They've reprinted it in different books here and there. I don't know if I've actually read the first issue, as I was saying. And quite frankly, I did not spend a lot of money on this, even though it is in a fine, very fine condition. It's really nice. And you know me, I'd consider getting this graded. But looking up the graded prices on this, I mean, a 7.0 literally went for $42, 7.5, $72, an 8.0, only $159, and then I even saw an 8.5 go for $57, and that's all over the last few months. And I'm kind of going, wow, that seems really low for something like this. But to be quite honest, I am glad that this is in a raw version, because I'm going to enjoy reading this in its entirety. It's going to be really nice. I'll, of course, be very careful with it, and I will consider getting it clean and pressed and graded at some point down the road. It's not high on the priority list. This is one of those books that I just think it's kind of cool to have in your collection. I mean, it is a Silver Age book. It comes from 1967. This book is slightly older than me, guys. I'm just not as weather-worn as some of these nice Silver Age books. But nice to have it in the collection. All right, so this was, again, the second day of this particular week of auctions, and I did pick up something else besides this right here. Now, this is not technically a comic book, or I guess it is in a way. It's more of a supplement, maybe. But it's this right here. It is one of the Spirit comics that you'd find in 1945. You would find this in the Chicago Sun as an insert, and it was from Will Eisner's The Spirit. Now, this is from April 8th, 1945, and this particular day on the auctions from Infinity Comics, they had several of these up for auction. All of them are listed in VG prices, conditions, and I wasn't really concerned with that. I was just concerned about maybe picking up one of these. I think it was really cool to have. And it didn't matter which one, although one was a little bit rougher than the others. And you got to remember, this is completely newsprint. There's no color cover. There's no, I mean, it's just straight up newsprint. So I don't know what this would grade out as. In fact, I don't know if I've even seen graded versions of this. I'd have to go look a little bit deeper on this. And I didn't care because, again, this particular day, both items here, I just wanted to have raw copies in my collection. And I've already opened this up and taken a look at it. I absolutely love Will Eisner's artwork and his storytelling. He is one of the masters of the sequential art. In fact, he published books on sequential art, and it's one of the books I studied back in college when I was in graphic design. Well, it wasn't graphic design school, it was a liberal arts college, but they had this wonderful fine arts / graphic design advertising program, and so one semester I took was completely on sequential art. It was an independent study, and I used Will Eisner's book on that as a study guide, and just absolute master. I enjoyed reading this. This was pretty cool just to have in the PC. So that leaves us with the last day of the auctions of this particular week. And I ended up with a couple other things. And you're sitting here going so far, well, you've got one pretty decent key comic in that Wolverine #2. And the significance of that, I mean, honestly, it is also the first appearance of Yukio. I didn't mention that earlier. That is the key first appearance in that issue. It doesn't make it a super big key, but that whole series is a key. So I've still got a couple books left, and we're going to keep this trend where these middle books aren't necessarily keys at all, but it is a minor key in its own right. This is Justice League of America number 106. It is the issue where the Red Tornado joins the Justice League, and that's its key significance. This book right here is not a grading candidate. I looked up some of the prices and everything, but it's one of these that I kind of just wanted in the PC. Watching Bronzeville Comics, Jim go back, and he and I are around the same age, and we have a lot of the same interests where we were growing up, and some of the early books that we had as children. I started the Justice League was 2 issues after this, so I've kind of taken an interest in going back and maybe buying some of those issues around that time period and do some of the reading. I've never read a lot of the stories, even to this day, around, except for the issues that I had, but the issues leading up to that, I never did. I never went back and I bought back issues of that. And now there's an itch, and I think I'm going to start scratching a little bit. And I did it with this book here. Again, I didn't spend a lot of money on Infinity Comics. I don't think anybody was really looking for this book. And quite honestly, I probably shouldn't have got it. It does have some wear over in the side over here that I should have passed on this and waited till I found a better copy. That is something I've been doing with the Invaders books when I go out there. I've been finding books I need, but if they have got any ticks at all, I just bypass it and try to get the highest grade possible. This one I kind of got caught, but again, it was only for a few bucks. It was no big deal. But the other book, the last book right here that I picked up for this particular week of Infinity Comics auctions, is a mega key. And I've never had this book. I've never read the story in here. But price seemed really good. And the condition on the photos look really good too. And I'm really hoping that this thing is going to grade out really well. There's one tick that doesn't kind of breaks color slightly, just very slightly, but the rest of it looks super good. So keep my fingers crossed. Let me show it to you. You guys, this is the first time I've ever owned a copy of DC Comics. Here, let's line those up. DC Comics Presents number 26 from October 1980. It's got the preview story, the first appearance of Raven, Cyborg, Starfire, the new Teen Titans, and never had this. I'm actually going to enjoy opening this up as I get ready to clean and press this and reading the story. I don't know where it's reprinted necessarily, but I was right there for issue number 1 of the new Teen Titans back in 1980, and I had that complete run, including when they started with the deluxe series as well. That George Perez artwork was just absolutely fantastic. What a great run. I can't wait to read this, and I can't wait to get this graded, because put a little bit of money into this, but I think I'm going to come out well ahead. 8.5s, which I think this is way better than that, recently have sold $150. 9.0s, $170, and keeps going up. 9.2s, $230, and 9.4s up to $300. I think I'm going to do really good on this book. It's one of those books that I want it in my collection, but I don't necessarily need to keep it in my collection. So we're going to clean and press it, and we're going to see just how good we can get this. And it'll be a book that I may, if it grades out better than I think, I may pass it on, help pay for some of the other orders that I've put in for CGC, and pay for some of the comics I've been buying recently. But right now, I am happy to have this in my collection. I can't believe I finally got a copy of this. It's one of those, it wasn't on the radar for the longest time. I just kind of let it go, and it popped up. And as I've been saying on Infinity Comics, their conditions have been very good. High grade books on there with a lot of pressable defects. And I just keep finding these on here. And you got to look at the photos. And even though the photos aren't as high grade, I keep saying that it looks really good. And honestly, this one got a little bit more expensive than I was expecting. In fact, I put a bid in and I forgot about it, and it ended up winning. I didn't sit there and try to snipe it at the end or anything. And it's one of those, I really kind of need this to grade out higher than probably an 8.5, which I think is going to be fine. I think it's going to be fine. But yeah, it's nice to have it in the PC. And again, you can find tons of these comics on Infinity Comics week in and week out. It seems like where they've got pressable defects that you can bump these things up. So that's the whole theme of this show, and that's everything I'm talking about in Infinity Comics, is that you can find the gems on there. And I think the prices sometimes are really good. Now, trust me, there's things I've been bypassing on some of these auctions where I think the price just went astronomical. And that's fine. Let it go. Let it go. But some of these, I think I've picked up at really good prices. I don't think this is necessarily one of those where it was a steal, but I still think it was a decent deal for what I think it's going to grade out to be. But some of the other books, especially from my last auction, I think I'm going to come out really good on those as well. And I know I've been bidding on some new auctions coming up, and we'll see how I do on that. And I'll come up with another video on Infinity Comics down the line. But there you go. That's what I picked up from this particular week from Infinity Comics auctions on hipcomics.com. Again, I will put the links down below so you guys can check out the website and check out the auctions. Also, check out Moneyball Comics. He does a lot of bidding on Infinity Comics auctions. In fact, he does bids on some of the other auctions that they have on Hipcomics. I have not delved into some of the other auctions quite as much. I've only looked at them. I've looked at them a little bit because, be honest with you, it seems a little difficult to find what the other auctions are necessarily. But I know that the Infinity Comics one has been real easy. It's right there at the front of the website. So far, so good. I've been really happy with everything I've picked up so far from that. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you for joining me. Definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought about the books today. Are these books that you would want in your PC? And if so, have you gotten them graded or not? Have you read the stories? Let me know by, again, leave me a comment in the comment section. And if you're ever interested on anything in the channel, whether it's raw or graded, definitely reach out to me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com or DM me on my Instagram account. You can also check out what I currently have for sale in my eBay store or on my Shortbox page by clicking some of the links below, again, in the description. All right, guys, that's it. I'm out of here. You'll have a good day. I will see you for the next show. And remember, every comic has a story.